Hi friends, welcome back to another video. It is a new year. Happy New Year everyone. It is 2024. I am so excited to get back into the swing of things when it comes to posting content and making videos and all of that. As some of you might know, last year was just very busy for me. I was finishing college, graduating, getting a job, all of that. I should have more time to create content because school is very all-consuming, which obviously if you've ever been in school, especially college, you would know. That being said, I'm really looking forward to this year, and one of my resolutions is to really commit myself to my content and actually try to be consistent. So this is something that I really love to do and that I've done since I was younger. When I was younger, I had a YouTube channel. I mean, it didn't really go well because like people at school would make fun of me and all of that, but I have been really consistently, in love with making content. The editing process, making something really creative is really something that I enjoy. So this year that's going to be a priority for me. That being said, if you guys want to follow me on social media, I will have all of my links in the description, whether it's Goodreads, TikTok, Instagram, whatever it is. It will be below. I also have a Storygraph account, so if you are a reader who uses Storygraph, I also update that regularly as well, and I will include that below. Also, today's video is going to be a tier ranking of all of the books that I read in 2023. I was planning on recording this in 2023 at the very end of the year, but things just got very hectic. So I thought this would be a good first video of the year to post. I am going to be tier ranking all of the books that I read. I'm really excited to do this. I've seen a lot of other YouTubers do this before, create tier rankings. I just think it's super fun to kind of reflect on what you read, what you thought about it. And also a lot of times my opinions will change, looking back on something that I read. In the moment, I might have really loved the book or thought it was a good book. And then in reflection, I realized that I barely ever think about it and that it wasn't really that good of a book. So I think, having time to sit on a book and really think about, did I really like it? Was it actually entertaining, or was it just something that passed the time when I was reading it, is actually really interesting. So I'm very excited to tier rank. So like I said, 2023 was a very busy year for me. I set a reading goal of 50 books, and then partway through the year I realized that that was not going to happen. I actually only started getting back into reading in April. Before April I think I read maybe 2 books, but I was not a big reader. And then in April I got really inspired and I felt like I needed some sort of outlet from school, so I started reading again. And that's when I really started to read heavily. About I would say maybe October, November, I decided to change my goal from 50 to 45 because I thought that might be a little bit more realistic for me. And so yeah, I did meet my goal. I read 45 books, and that is the most books that I've ever read in a year before. So I'm very proud of myself. And I know that a lot of people read more than that, a lot of people read less than that. So I always just say don't try to compare yourself to other people when it comes to reading, because as long as you're having fun, that's all that matters. I think it is important to remember quality over quantity always. So I'm gonna start screen recording. So as you guys will see, there are 5 categories. I'm gonna go over what each one is and what they kind of represent. And then at the bottom here, I have all of my books that I read this year. It doesn't really look like that much, but I think 45 is a pretty, good number. So anyway, the top category is I need this book in an IV. And this means that I absolutely ate this book up. It was addictive. I could not put it down. I still think about it to this day. These are 6-star reads that I think will stick with me for years to come. These are books that really impacted me as a reader, but also as a person, really made me think. Maybe even put me into an existential crisis. These are my absolute favorite books that I read this year, and that I would die for everybody to read. These books I would sell my soul to read again for the first time. So that's the top category. Next we have Love, which is just a book that I loved, but there were some problems with it, but overall I really loved it and I would totally recommend it to everybody. It's just a very good book that I was kicking, giggling my feet, all of that. The third category is nothing special, but enjoyed. And this is kind of my 3-star reads. These are books that are they were good and enjoyable, but they weren't great. And there were a lot of problems that, if they were fixed, it would have been a lot better. but I still enjoyed my experience overall and would recommend the book. And then we have wouldn't recommend, and this is like books that I just did not like and that I probably wouldn't recommend. Like there were some things about it that were okay and like good, but the majority of it I was kind of like, I don't really know what's going on, or I don't really like this storyline. These could also just be books that like weren't really for me. Books that I know that a lot of other people like, but I wasn't particularly a fan of. And then wish I didn't read it. These are like books that I absolutely just, there was no redeeming qualities and I literally hated it. Like I just did not like it and I would never recommend it to anybody. And I just wish that I hadn't even read it. So there's not gonna be a lot in this category because I'm not a very harsh rater, but I thought I would include it just because I'm sure there's probably at least one that I was like, I wish I didn't read this. So yeah, let's get into it. First things first, we have Fourth Wing. I'm gonna put this in I need this book in an IV. This was honestly the book that got me into fantasy. I had never really delved into fantasy before this year, but I read Fourth Wing and everyone was obsessed with it, including me. I'm not gonna lie, like a lot of people didn't like this book, but I think sometimes when books are like really hyped up, a lot of people start to hate on them, and not necessarily because they're bad, but just because they are more mainstream. And everyone obviously is entitled to their own opinion, but I really thought it was a solid book. It was a really interesting concept. And I would say that this book is almost like Harry Potter X Hunger Games X Divergent, and all of those books I was obsessed with when I was younger. So this was amazing. And also the romance is top tier. I was obsessed with them. So yeah, I would say I definitely need this book in an IV. I read it so quickly and I was so obsessed with it. I told all of my friends. I still think about it to this day. And I actually read it twice this year. I read it back in, I think, either May or June. And then I read it again in November/October when Iron Flame came out because I wanted to remember everything that had happened. So yeah, I need this book in an IV. It was very good. Next we have Iron Flame. I'm gonna put this book in love. It was good. I think there were some problems with it that I didn't like. Like for example, I didn't really like some of the tropes that were going on in the romance, if that makes sense. I don't want to give too much away, but there were some like tensions and stuff that I just did not like. There was one character at the beginning, or not really the beginning, but like when this character was first introduced, I absolutely hated them. Like every time this character would show up on a page, I would get so angry. Like I'd be like, I literally do not want to read about this character. But then by the end, I kind of did end up liking the character. So I think that that was like a redeeming quality. However, like I said, there were some things about it where I was reading and I was like, okay, like, let's keep going. Let's move on from this. Most of the actual plot was really interesting to me. And the ending had me absolutely gooped and gagged. I was hanging on by a thread. You know what I mean? Like I emotionally could not handle the ending and I still think about it to this day. However, I don't think I need this book in an IV because there were some things that it kind of bothered me. But overall, I loved it. Like I was in it the whole time and I just love the series and the characters. So I'm gonna put it in love. Okay, next we have A Court of Thorns and Roses. I rated this 5 stars and all I would say is, boy, I did not know what was coming next. I'm gonna put this in love because I still really enjoyed it while I read it, but I don't think it was like I was so obsessed with it that I could not put it down. There was definitely an element of like, I didn't want to put it down, I ate it up, but I also don't really think about this book every single day. Like overall for what it was, I loved it and I really enjoyed it. And obviously like I wanted to continue the series really badly after it ended because I was shook. But I will say that the beginning, like 70% of the book was good, not great. But the ending 30% was like the thing that made the book. I was on the edge of my seat for the ending 30% of this book. So that's the only reason that I'm putting it in love and nothing special but enjoyed. Because like the ending I absolutely loved and I was hooked. The beginning, I could see why people say that this series is kind of hard to get into, but if you push through and get to the end, it is so worth it. The ending is so good. Then we have A Court of Mist and Fury, and this is going directly into I need this book in an IV. This is one of the best books that I read in 2023, if not the best. It might be the best, honestly. I ate this up. I think I read this in like 2 or 3 days, and this is while I'm in school full-time as a college student, and this book is over 600 pages long. I am so obsessed with these characters. I could read about them for years. Like, I'm so obsessed. And I'm currently reading A Court of Wings and Ruin, which is going really well and I'm really loving it. But I can already tell that A Court of Mist and Fury is going to be my favorite in the series, and I literally would sell my soul to read it again for the first time because it was that good. Like, I'm so obsessed with it. I think about it every single day. It changed my life. I literally, after I was done, called up my boyfriend and told him the entire plot, and it took me like an hour to explain it. The second book blows the first book out of the water. And if you read the first book and you're like not really sure about the series, I promise you the second book is like the savior of this. Like, it's so good. It is so good. And then you realize just how much of a genius Sarah J. Maas is. Like, she is a genius. How does she just have these things? Like, after the first book, I was like, I don't really know what's going to happen. And then you read the second book and you're like, how did she come up with all this? From where she started with what she had from the first book, how did we get here to the second book? You know what I mean? Okay, so next we have Addicted to You by Krista and Becca Ritchie. I think this one I'm gonna go with, Nothing Special But Enjoyed. There were a lot of things that really kind of annoyed me about this book, but overall I would say it was fun, it was entertaining. There's not a lot of plot. Like, I will say there's not a lot of plot. It is really just all drama. But if that's your cup of tea, and that's kind of my cup of tea, I'm not gonna lie, I love a good drama, then I think you would enjoy this. But it's nothing special, it's nothing crazy. The only reason I read it is because I know that the rest of the books in this series actually go crazy and that everybody loves them, and that's my plan, is to like continue reading the series. So yeah, I'm gonna put that in Nothing Special But Enjoyed. Then we have The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. I'm gonna put this in Love. I really enjoyed this, but I don't think it's like one of the best books that I read in the year. It was probably one of the best romances that I read, but you know, it was cute. There's nothing really wrong with it. I think after reading fantasy romance, nothing can really compare to that, because something about fantasy romance is like next level. Like, I think it's because the stakes are so much higher and like it's life or death and things like that. I loved this book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I had a really good time reading it. It was adorable. I was obsessed with them. But honestly, like, I probably couldn't even tell you the names of the main characters. So that's kind of why I'm like, I don't really need this book in an IV, but I really loved it and there was nothing really wrong with it. So yeah, I'm putting that in Love. We have The Storied Life of A.J. Fikry. This is also gonna go in Love. I really enjoyed this book. It was so sweet, such a cute, short, very meaningful story. It really resonated with me. I think it's more of like a literary fiction type of vibe, but it was just a really sweet, heartwarming story. There's nothing wrong with it. I have no complaints. Yeah, I loved it. Then we have 1,000 Boy Kisses by, I think it's Tilly Cole. This book I'm gonna put in Wish I Didn't Read It. And I know I said that I didn't think there'd be a lot of books in there, which I still don't think there's gonna be many books in this category, but and I know a lot of people really like this book, but for me, it is so unbelievably overrated. I read the whole thing expecting it to like break my heart, shatter my heart into pieces. And honestly, the majority of it, I was absolutely cringing, and I felt like we really did not get a lot of information about the characters at all. Like, I felt like I barely knew them, and a lot of their relationship just felt kind of like thrown together. Like, I don't know, like, and also I could not picture the world. It almost felt like fake. I don't even know how to explain it, but I really didn't like this book. It was honestly hard for me to finish this book. Like, I really had to push through. Like, if I'm being completely honest, I totally almost DNF'd this book. I just really did not enjoy it at all. I think I gave it like 2 stars, 2.5 stars, but honestly, like, I wish I didn't read it. Then we have The Dead Romantics. I'm gonna put this in Nothing Special But Enjoyed. There weren't like a lot of things that were wrong with it. I just honestly don't really think it's that memorable of a story. However, I really did enjoy it while I was reading it, and I read it specifically like in the fall time in October for spooky season, and so I definitely think for what it was and like for what it was like supposed to accomplish, it definitely achieved that. Then we have The Summer I Turned Pretty. I'm gonna put this also in Nothing Special But Enjoyed. I thought that was good. I really liked it, and it was like giving me very much summer vibes, but also I think there are a lot better books out there, and I think this book is almost like very basic. Like, I don't really think it's anything super unique of a storyline, and a lot of the like tropes in it I usually don't really like. So the only reason I read this series was because I wanted to watch the TV show. And so I'm definitely glad that I read the series, but the first book, nothing special, but enjoyed it. Like it was enjoyable. It just wasn't, amazing. Then we have the second book. The second book, honestly, would it recommend? There was absolutely nothing that happened. Like I was so bored. This one was honestly hard for me to get through, and it wasn't even that long. I don't wish I didn't read it because, like I said, I wanted to read the series so that I would understand the TV show. However, this book was very hard for me to get through. I really didn't like it. And yeah, honestly, just probably the worst book in the series. Then we have We'll Always Have Summer. This is going to go into love. Because I actually really liked this book. The ending I thought was perfect for the series. I thought it was the best book in the series. I really enjoyed it. It made a lot of sense. It was cohesive. It had flow. So I really liked this book. There were a lot of things about it, like afterwards, where I just kind of thought about it for a while after, where I was like, that was a really good ending to the book. And like, I really, was along the ride with these characters for 3 books, and I felt almost like sad that it was over. So yeah, the third book I would say is definitely the best book. Then we have Powerless. This is going to go into I need this book in an IV. And this is an interesting case of this because I was absolutely obsessed with this book. Ate it up. The tension is like next level. Absolutely next level. But that's not to say that there weren't a few things that kind of bothered me about the book, because I don't think I rated it 5 stars. I think I rated it 4.75 because of that. However, the characters almost like made it so that I didn't really care about the things that were wrong with it. So I was literally obsessed with this book. Like, it was so addicting. And also, like, the author is my age, a young female writer, so I think we need to support her. She's like documented her entire journey on TikTok. Yeah, for this being her debut novel, I was absolutely shocked at how amazing this was. Like, I mean, we all know that she's an amazing writer, but it was shocking how cohesive and just like enjoyable and addicting this book was. So I totally recommend this book if you love tension and fantasy romance. This is for you. And it's also for me, and I need it in an IV. I'm obsessed. So next we have When in Rome. I'm gonna put this one in love. I actually really liked this. This one was probably my favorite romance. Actually, now that I think about it, like I really did like The Love Hypothesis, but I think When in Rome must have been my favorite romance. I rated it 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was super quick, but also like I felt like everything that needed to be included was included, and I really cared about the characters. And I still like remember what happened in the characters. I just really liked it, and I liked their dynamic. I liked the tropes. So yeah, I loved it. Then we have Divine Rivals, and this is going straight into I need this book in an IV. This book changed the way that I think. Like, I genuinely think my brain chemistry was altered by this book. All I have to say about this book is that if you guys know that song by Hosier, where he goes, "When my time comes around, lay me gently in the dark, cold dark earth. No grave could hold my body down. I'll crawl home to her." That song was made for this book, okay? Just that's all you should need to know to want to read it. Okay, next we have The Naturals. This is gonna go into love. I love true crime, and so this book was perfect. Just super exciting, thrilling, just a lot of fun. I'm also going to put Killer Instinct in love. I really liked these books. There was nothing really wrong about them. I mean, they are YA, so they're not like super in-depth, I guess you could say. Really interesting concept. It's about these kids who, work with the FBI because they have these special talents to solve cold cases. And as somebody who loves true crime and always has watched true crime podcasts and things like that, I really liked these books. So just really solid books, really quick, really fast, but you also really get to love the characters, and there's a lot of found family, which I am obsessed with. We have Shatter Me. I'm gonna put this in nothing special but enjoyed, because I wasn't really that attached to the main love interest in this book. And granted, I have not read past Destroy Me, which is the novella, which I'm also gonna put in nothing special but enjoyed. So I don't know what happens, but in this book at least, like, I wasn't obsessed with the love interest and like their relationship, but it was entertaining. Like, I did like the book, and it didn't take me that long to read it. Like, I wasn't struggling to get through it at all. Like, it was entertaining, but there were just a lot of things where I was kind of like why? Or I'm not really that interested. You know what I mean? So it was entertaining, but it wasn't like captivating, if that makes sense. And when I was younger, I was absolutely obsessed with it. But now that I'm older and I read it again, I was kind of like, I don't know if I'm obsessed with it, but it was good. So that's why it's going in there. Then we have Flawless by Elsie Silver. This might be a little bit of a controversial opinion, but I'm gonna put this in nothing special but enjoyed. This is my first cowboy romance. I'm not big into like country music or cowboy life or anything like that. Maybe when I was younger, I was a little bit more into like country music and the whole cowboy vibe, but I'm not really into like the whole southern vibe. Like I'm not really that kind of girly. I'm more of like a city girly, a coastal girly. That's more my vibe. That being said, I did enjoy this book and I did like the romance. Like it was interesting, but there were a lot of like plot elements that I thought were kind of lacking, and some of it kind of cringed me out a little bit. But overall, I did enjoy it, and it was a quick, easy read. And I do plan on reading at least the next one, because I think everyone says that it's either the next one or the one after that is like the best one. So I definitely do want to read the next one, but I'm going to save that for like the summertime when cowboy romances are like all the rage. Next we have Love in Other Words. This is going straight into I need this book in an IV. This is the blueprint when it comes to second chance romance, childhood friends to lovers. I read this book and wanted to sob. It was so beautiful. Just a beautiful story. I loved everything about it. Like there was nothing that I would complain about this book. Like it was just an amazing book. It was so sweet, so heartfelt. I have Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. This I'm gonna go in would it recommend, because this book is basically the same thing as Love in Other Words, and it's almost like too similar, if you know what I mean. It almost feels like she copy and pasted Love in Other Words and just changed the names of the characters. And for that alone, I'm not going to recommend it, because if you wanted that, you should just read Love in Other Words. Then we have Twin Crowns. I'm going to put this in love. I actually really liked this book. It was a really interesting plot story. I really liked the romance going on for both of the main characters. It was really sweet, really entertaining. There was a lot of action. There was a lot of plot, but I think it was more of like, it was more balanced. Like there was a lot of plot, but there was also a lot of character development. So I would definitely recommend this book. I don't think enough people talk about this series. It's a YA, like romantasy, I guess you could say. But it's very good. Cursed Crowns, I'm going to put in nothing special but enjoyed, because it was a continuation. There was a lot of things that were going on that I thought maybe could have been done a little bit better, but it was still interesting and I did care about the characters and what was going on. Then we have Happy Place. This is going straight into I need this book in an IV, because I am Harriet. Harriet is me. I am Harriet. Like, she and I are the same person, and I related to her like I have never related to a main character in my entire life. And for that reason alone, I was obsessed with this book, but also the romance was just so sweet, just so sweet. I was obsessed with Win. I was obsessed with their, relationship, and there was nothing about this book that I didn't like. Like everything about it, I was obsessed with. So if you are not an Emily Henry girly, you need to delve in, because her books are just amazing. Then we have Spare by Prince Harry. This one I'm gonna put in like nothing special but enjoyed. I actually rated this 5 stars, but that was like towards the beginning of my like reading journey this year, so I probably would rate this like 3 stars now. Only reason I would give it a rating, because it is a memoir and I usually don't like to give memoirs or biographies ratings, is because it was ghostwritten. So that's the only reason that I would feel like comfortable, giving it a rating. However, I did really appreciate his insight into his military service, and that was really interesting to read about. I had no idea about that. I think in terms of like telling his story, it was amazing. It was a great book. However, the writing just wasn't amazing for me. So then we have The Hunger Games. I'm gonna put this in love. Very entertaining, very quick. Obviously, it's a classic. I read this towards the end of the year, and I'm currently actually still in the world because I wanted to watch The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I'm currently about to start reading that book this month, so I'm gonna watch the movie this month, even though it came out last month. But I wanted to reread the series to really understand the world again, because I hadn't read Hunger Games since I was maybe like 12, and I don't even think I ever read the second one or the third one, so. Catching Fire is also going to go into love. I would maybe rate this a little bit higher than The Hunger Games, but I loved both. Neither one of them I would say I needed an IV, but Catching Fire was very good in the way that it was traumatizing in a good way, if that makes sense. That's all I'm going to say about it. Then we have Mockingjay. I'm going to put this in wouldn't recommend. I did not like this book at all. I think I gave this 2 stars. Honestly, I mean, I would even consider putting it in wish I didn't read it, but I'm gonna put it in wouldn't recommend because I think it's important to read to end the series. However, I did not like it. There were a lot of problems. I could not picture 13 in my head. Just a lot of the scenes I could not picture. I felt like we were not really set up in a good way to picture what was going on. And that really bothered me. So yeah, wouldn't recommend, not the best one. My Policeman, I'm gonna put this in nothing special but enjoyed, because I just really hated one of the characters, like, and it's literally the character that the book is about. Like, I hated him. Do with that information what you will. I just couldn't get past how much I hated him. So then we have Beach Read. This is going straight into I need this book in an IV. This is such an amazing book. It is giving happiness. It is giving summer. All I have to say, and I know that everybody quotes this quote, but I just really think that we need to reiterate this quote as many times as possible. And the quote goes like this: I'm overwhelmed that you exist. Excuse me? Like, I don't know how to process that. So I think about that quote at least twice a day. At least twice a day. Then we have Book Lovers. I'm gonna put this honestly in love. I don't know. I'm gonna put this in nothing special but enjoyed, actually, because I honestly couldn't tell you a lot of what happened. It was not my favorite. And I love Emily Henry, but this one was not my favorite. I really loved Happy Place and Beach Read. Those are my absolute top tiers out of her. But People We Meet on Vacation and Book Lovers, I don't love as much. I would actually say I like People We Meet on Vacation more than Book Lovers. We're gonna go to Magnolia Parks. This I would say love, because I was thoroughly invested in the absolute pure toxicity of this relationship. I need a coffee break. One thing about me is that I love drama. I eat up drama. And if you love drama, this book is for you. Like, this relationship is absolutely toxic, so bad, but it is entertaining as hell. Like, it is very entertaining. Yeah, I loved it. I ate it up. It was very entertaining. I will say it is a little bit hard to get into because at first you really have to like adjust to her writing style. It's very unique. But once you get into it, it's addicting. You can't put it down. Next we have Once Upon a Broken Heart. This is going to go into love as well. Very good, very magical. I really liked this book. I think this is the book that really got me into reading more like magical, like fantastical type of writing. And like stories. I really liked this. I read this very early on this year. Then we have The Ballad of Never After. This is going into I need this book in an IV because it was the best book in the series. So good. The romance was just like heating up. It was getting exciting. The ending alone was just incredible. Like, I can't even wrap my head around the ending of this book, and I felt sick to my stomach just like knowing that I needed to continue on. So out of the entire series, this is definitely my favorite book, and I think it's the best one. Then we have the third book of the series, which is A Curse for True Love. This one I'm going to put in nothing special, but enjoyed. I did enjoy it. I just thought there were a lot of things that could have been done better. A lot of it was kind of boring to me, and it was a lot harder for me to like picture what was going on than it was for the first two. So I was a little disappointed by this book because it was the ending of the trilogy. However, I think that the second book alone makes it so that you should read the entire series. However, I would still recommend the last book. I just don't think that it was the best one. Then we have the first 4 Harry Potter books. Obviously, we're gonna put this, well, we'll put the first one and the second one into love because they're just classics, incredible. The third one and the fourth one are going into I need this book in an IV. I think everyone can agree that as the series goes on, it gets literally incredible. Like, it gets so much better. These books are just so classic and timeless, and they really, made my childhood. Harry Potter was the epitome of my childhood. I was obsessed with Harry Potter, and to this day, I still love going to Harry Potter World and all of that stuff, and so this series brings me a lot of joy. Next, we have Daisy Jones and the Six. I'm gonna put this in love. I was not obsessed with it, but I did enjoy it a lot. I do think it's overrated a little bit in my personal opinion. Please do not hate me. In my personal opinion, I think it's a little bit overrated. I really did not like the main male character. I absolutely hated him. And I don't really care like what time it was. His behaviors were a little to me. Like I was cringing, I felt icky. He was giving me the ick, honestly. Even though that's the case, I can understand why people are so obsessed with this book. And so that's why like I would never, not recommend it to somebody, because I think that it's a really great book. I just don't really like the MMC. I'm not a real big fan of him, if you know what I mean. Then we have I'm Glad My Mom Died. I'm not gonna rate this one because this is a very personal, traumatic memoir from Jeanette McCurdy. It was incredible. I would recommend everybody read this memoir. I'm not going to tier rank it because I don't think that it's fair to do that, especially with all of the intense subjects that she talks about of like what she went through. Then we have The Perfect Marriage. This was one of the first books that I read last year. I'm going to put this in nothing special but enjoyed, because I'm not a big thriller person, and I think this was like the only thriller I actually read besides like The Naturals and Killer Instincts, but that's like more like YA mystery, I guess you could say. But The Perfect Marriage, it was interesting, and a lot of people said that they saw the plot twist coming. I would say that I had thought about the plot twist in the back of my mind, but I didn't like guess that that was what was going to happen. Like I had thought about it, but I hadn't like decided that that was what the plot twist was, if that makes sense. So it still kind of caught me off guard, and I was still a little bit shocked. And like I said, I'm not a big thriller reader, so I don't really know what's good and what's bad when it comes to thrillers. So I rated it 5 stars after I read it. I probably would rate it maybe 3 or 4 now. It was a good book. I was entertained. I was having fun. And I would probably recommend this to somebody who has never read a thriller before and wants to get into it. I think this is a good place to start. Then we have A Woman in Berlin. Again, I'm not going to rate this book because this is a diary. I actually read this for school because I was writing an essay. This is a diary from a woman who lived in Berlin after the Red Army came to, basically capture Berlin at the end of World War II. And it is very traumatic. There is a lot of things that happen that are absolutely super upsetting. Check trigger warnings if you're going to read this book. It was just an incredible book. I would say it's almost like a classic. I would totally recommend if you're interested in World War II history. And yeah, I read this for a class. I was a history major in college, and I actually graduated last month. So very exciting. But yeah, as a history major, this was very fascinating to me and just a really good read. And it was actually the first book that I read this year. So yeah, this is my tier ranking. Yeah, it's crazy to look at this. It's nice to kind of organize it by like the books that I was absolutely obsessed with, and the ones that I just kind of liked a little bit, and then the ones that I didn't like. I'm actually kind of surprised by the one, like A Thousand Boy Kisses. I thought I was going to really love, but I really did not like it at all. So it's always interesting to look back on what you read, and I can almost see my book taste forming over the last year of reading. So very interesting. I am so glad that I did this, and I am definitely going to do this again at the end of this year and see what I read this year. That is all for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and I will talk to you soon in my next video.